I know you presented a treatment for Metal Gear Solid that was ultimately turned down, the movie, and recently you've been picked up to adapt Lost Planet. But is there any other game out there that you'd love to have a part in taking to the big screen?
Well, there's a lot of games that I love. I think Assassin's Creed, for example, would make a great movie. It'd be interesting to see what could be done with a Grand Theft Auto movie, I suppose. Yeah. Although those are pretty good movies in and of themselves. Oh, hey, in fact, I just went to my door and found another copy of the Lost Planet artwork book to inspire me. So
wow.
That's the beauty of my job. People just drop off cool books on your doorstep. But yeah, I don't know of any other games that I would want to adapt. Really, I don't really think of things that way. If I do see something that I like, I'll hunt down the rights and figure out who's got it, and then see if we can turn it into a project. But for the most part, I'm pretty busy. I'm sort of booked up a couple years in advance, and so it's usually the other way around. When somebody has the rights to something, they'll call me up and ask me to come in, and then if I'm interested, we'll discuss setting it up.
Yeah. Now, I want to get into talking about Metal Gear Solid 4 for a minute.
Me too.
Oh gosh. Now for my own perverse curiosity, collectively, how many hours of coughing, hacking, and gagging do you think you did for that game?
I don't know. It was absolutely brutal. I literally just last night played through the part where he goes through the microwaves.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the game, and he's just absolutely at the end of his life, essentially, and it made me ill just listening to it. I mean, it was. People ask me, well, do they just have a library of you grunting and barfing and getting shot or whatever? And the answer is no. We do all of that stuff fresh every single time.
Right.
And I don't know how many hours. Straight, I couldn't even tell you, 10, 20.
Wow.
We recorded that game from February to October of last year. To give you an idea how long the entire game took, and out of that, just the horrible hacking and wheezing.
Yeah.
It would come and go. Like what they'll do. Actually, this is an exclusive for you. I don't think I've ever told anybody this, but I get the hiccups if I do too many strike sounds or I start to get the hiccups. So Chris Zimmerman, who's the English voice director for all the Metal Gear so far, keeps all that stuff, all the really brutal physical stuff, until the end of each session. So we'll go through, we'll do 3.5 hours of voicing, and then half an hour of just, getting punched or barfing or getting electrocuted.
Right. Which I know you personally hate, the vomiting and the electrocution and...
I don't hate it. I mean, that's not true. I appreciate it because I feel like some of the great heroes that I loved when I was growing up, Harrison Ford, for example, or Mel Gibson in the Lethal Weapon movies. These guys knew that it's not about being tough per se. It's about illustrating the amount of pain that the character can go through that makes him heroic. So, whereas Schwarzenegger was sort of an action hero who was Teflon, people, things couldn't really seem to hurt him. Harrison Ford would get just beaten up and show it. You'd see that pain on his face. So I think it's really important to see how human Snake is. That's a big part of making it real for people. And so I do appreciate that, but that is the one part that is really tough on my body and on my voice.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I have to say, Metal Gear Solid 4 is such a beautiful and amazing game.
Oh,
and you...
I'm I didn't create it, but I tend to agree. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and
it's astounding what they did.
It really is. And you, Quentin, and Christopher all owe me boxes of Kleenex. Christopher maybe 2. Maybe he owes me 2. But
I know, it's sad, eh?
I know.
Everything that happens to Raiden and Otacon, and although I don't understand, and I'll probably get in trouble for this, but as well, but I don't understand why Otacon was so worked up over Naomi, who all she ever did was inject people with fox dye and screw people over, and then she sort of brushes his hand once, and then he's all busted up over her dying. I didn't really understand that, but
you know, me either, and I think it was like one of those things I didn't understand. Along with, and I hope I'm not being too spoilerific here, but the whole Meryl and Johnny hookup.
Oh my God, and that made me mad. I had to watch that whole thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, great. Well, I'm getting microwaved. Thanks.
Yeah, exactly. It was complete bullshit to me. That was just my opinion. So I'm happy you agree. I'm very happy you agree, because for a minute I thought it was only me, because people were kind of embracing it, and I'm like, what are you doing? This isn't right, you know?
Well, I mean, it is funny, and that this guy with the chronic diarrhea has been around for all this time, and he, ends up falling for Meryl. But the fact that she would throw me over for him is a little shallow, I think. But
yeah,
c'est la vie. Snake wasn't meant to last anyway. So
yeah. Sad but true. Now, you're probably not a very shy person, but do you find that process and atmosphere of doing voice acting intimidating at all? Being in the booth and kind of closed in and everything.
No, no, doing voice acting. When you do a movie, like a live action movie, that doesn't intimidate me either, but that can be more intimidating for people because you've got hundreds of people watching you. You have to step into the lights. Everything's focused on you, and you really have to carry it off. And anything you screw up is going to cost them tens of thousands of dollars in reset time. But voiceovers, doing voiceovers is a great job. I mean, you go into the booth, everybody's really nice, with very few exceptions, and especially doing Metal Gear, I've just known all these people for 10 years, and we just have a great time. So, no, there's no... And plus, I've been playing the character for so long that I have a grip on how I like to play him. So, we don't even... Chris, English voice director, and I don't even barely speak anymore. She just goes, can you give it... Just... Can you make it more snaky? I go, you got it. And off we go.
Oh, man, that's great.
Yeah, it's fun.
No, there's no doubt in my mind that Solid Snake is a part of you after voicing him for 10 years. Have you ever found yourself saying or doing things that you thought Snake might?
Yeah. Well, I found that as I get older and a little more curmudgeonly, that the voice tends to creep in a little more in my daily life. And I try not to act like him, because that'll really get you in trouble. But but he and I do have similar personalities in many ways, and so yeah, I think I'm slowly becoming Solid Snake in my real life.
That's fantastic, because I was actually going to ask too, like, how do you think Solid Snake would translate to real life, like, not in a movie sense, but in an actual, human being living his life, Well,
I think he'd be like he is, I think there are those guys out there that these special forces guys who, and being in the special forces is primarily, a young man's game, and so you train these guys to fight and kill and do all these extraordinary things, and they have these amazing adventures. I have a good friend who's an Army Ranger, and who's been through all this stuff, and I think, afterwards there's this strange sense of having seen a side of the world that most people don't get to see, that most people don't want to see, and sort of being saddled with that knowledge and the knowledge that people don't really understand you. So I think for the most part, those guys, tend. I mean, I don't want to generalize. I'm just talking here, but I think they tend to live their lives quietly and calmly, or they go crazy and fall apart.
Yeah,
that's your other option. So I think that's what. So I think it's very what Mr. Kojima did with him by sending him out to Alaska and saying, "Okay, I'm going to retire. I'm just going to go up to the middle of nowhere and hang out with my dogs." I think that's